Right, so with the topside camouflage on, I've dealt with any of the areas of overspray that needed dealing with, and I've also sprayed the wheelbase, as you can see. So now what I want to do before I start applying decals is I want to apply a wash. What I want to do is quite a dark wash on the top sides and a paler wash on the undersides. So for that, I've in this this little dish here, I've mixed up some Abteilung white and black to make a fairly pale pale grey, sort of medium grey colour, which I'm going to use for the undersides. My previous videos have show how I do my washes, and it's really quite a liberal, just pretty much slathering it all over the bits that I want to wash, like so, and working all over the underside. As you see, there's nothing particularly subtle about it, and then once that's done, I will darken the mix down with some more black to make it darker for the top sides, and I'll do the same on the top sides. You let this dry for, it'll probably dry within 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll go around and remove all the excess with kitchen towel. Really not a very complex operation, all told. And certainly more subtle when you mix shades of oil paint rather than using it from the straight from the tube for this kind of job. It just doesn't look quite as obtrusive as kind of thick black lines that I still occasionally see being used. I mean, it's a modeller's choice. I'd never say it's anything other than a modeller's choice, but for me, mixing your wash up is just going to get you better results, going to get you closer to an effect that is more realistic. So that's the underside done. As you can see, that took probably 90 seconds. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some more of the black to the mix here, and then I'm going to darken it down, and then I'm going to do the top sides. We'll let that dry, and then we'll come back and we'll deal with removing the excess wash. So I'll catch up with you when we're ready to do that. Right, so here we are, we're back. I've applied the wash over the entire model, as you can see, and I've helped it dry with a hairdryer. So what we're going to be doing now is removing the wash, so the only stuff we've got left is washing the panel lines. Just using some ordinary kitchen towel for that. Tear it up into small strips. Okay, and then you're basically just using it to remove the excess. It can, the more you polish, the more you'll remove, but you'll end up with a very nice, slightly stained finish with some medium grey left in the panel lines. As a wash, as I say, nowhere near as stark as a black wash. As I said, I used two different types of wash. Those are fairly medium to pale grey on the underside, and I used the darker wash on the top side, obviously against the darker colours. So let's just remove the wash from the top side. And that's what we're left with on the top side, which I hope you can see. So this is just basically a case of working your way over the model. Whenever your piece of tissue gets clogged up, just throw it away and move to a new piece. But as I say, the more you polish, the more of the oil paint you will remove, and the less dirty your model will look. Although obviously the wash is going to remain in the panel detail. So that's it. Basically, we're just working over the whole model, doing that, and I'll see you back when we've finished off this portion of the model, and we're more or less ready to start decaling then. Okay, so we've removed all the excess oil paint now, and basically I'm ready to start applying the decals. The decal sheet that comes with the model is quite small, but seems to have all the main details and decals that we need. Eastern European decals tend to be very well produced these days. They're very thin. In fact, sometimes they can be rather difficult to handle because they're so thin. And one of the other problems that you can tend to have with them is that they stick to any surface you put them on very, very quickly, and then are very difficult to manipulate. So what I've got here is just a little pot of water with some washing up liquid in it, just to provide a kind of lubricant to the surface of the model before I apply the decal. I'm initially not going to use any setting or softening solutions on this model, and see how the decals take just being applied and pressed down. As I say, Eastern European decals have a tendency to be very thin and can form very well. Sometimes adding any kind of a softening solution is, you know, can actually be overkill. So I'm just going around and cutting out the first two decals, just here for the wing underside. Okay, so I need to find my tweezers. Hot water here. I tend to use it as hot as it comes straight from the tap. So I'm just going to dip the decal for a few seconds and set it to one side, and then looking at the plans to locate where exactly the decal needs to go. I'm just going to apply some of that water and washing up liquid mixture. Okay, and in a very few seconds the decal is already pretty much free, so I'm just going to slide it from its backing into position. And then it's just manipulating it into place until we're happy. And that looks about right. So then just using a piece of kitchen towel just to pat the decal down. I do apologise for the noise outside. Somebody appears to have decided that today is the day to do some tree surgery, so there you go. So really that's how simple it is. We'll keep an eye on the decal as it dries, and then if I need to later on add any softening or setting solutions, we can do that without any trouble whatsoever. But for now, the decals are very thin. I'm just going to see how they perform without the addition of any of those solutions. So there's the underside. So what I'll do is I'll just go through the same procedure with the top sides. Now fortunately there's relatively few decals to go on this model, so it's more or less this model can be completely done in one sitting. So I'm just going to get the top side markings on. Again, as I said, I'm quite pleased with the colours of these decals. The red is quite dark, as it should be. So as you can see, it really takes a very few seconds before the decal comes free of the paper, which is one of the traits of Eastern European decals in general. So just having a look, pretty happy with that as a location. So again, patting the decal down. I think that decal needs to go back a bit further on the wing in retrospect, so I'm just going to move it back a little bit. So it needs to go to just in front of the aileron hinge line. That's better. Yeah, I'm happy with that as a location. So that's it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to work all over the model. I don't see this taking much more than 10 or 15 minutes to get all the decals in place, because there's that few of them. We'll let them dry, see if they need any solutions or anything adding, and slicing along the panel lines, and then we'll be back for the next stages. So I'll see you when all the decals are applied, and we're looking at how well they've gone down, and if we need to assist them any further. Okay, so the decals have now had a couple of hours to dry. I'm just checking over to see how they've gone down into the detail. They have actually gone down very, very nicely into the detail without any further help from any solutions or anything. But one thing I do like to do is I like to, along actual panel detail where the decal crosses, areas such as the roundels here which go across a panel line, I like to slice the, using a fresh blade just like so, just slice along the panel line, like so, very carefully, using a very sharp blade, okay, and then we've done that. What I do is I take a little drop of a setting or softening solution. In this case I'm just going to use a little bit of Solvaset, and just run it along that panel line. And what that does is it'll soften the decal along that panel line and pull it right into the panel line, which makes it easier to sort of touch up your wash into that panel detail when the decal's dry. So again, there's only a couple of areas on this Lightning. There's not a lot where it crosses panel detail. There's each of the vertical tail or fin flashes goes across to a very minor degree, so that's easy enough, and then that is about, as far as I can tell, that's about it. Looking over the model, so we're just going to run a little bit into those sliced and that's more or less it. That's just now just got to leave that to dry. Then we can touch in the wash along the panel, along the decals, and then we can look at a coat of varnish. Then we're really moving quickly along now onto finishing and the like. A lot of people ask why I don't do a wash overall after I've applied the decals. I find that oil washes can stain decals quite a lot more than I want them to if they're left on there, and you can get a build up around the ridge and the edge of the decal of oil paint, which shows up when you've varnished. So I like to just do the wash, apply the decals, and then when the wash is when that's all done and dry, just touch in the wash exactly where I need it on the decal. I'll show you that when we get there. One of the other little items I've got here is the prop blades I've painted whilst we've been doing you know, the decals and stuff have been drying. So I'm just making sure that they're all facing the right way. Which is not as easy as it looks, because what I need to do is there's a small decal that needs to go on each of these. But what I might do is actually assemble the props completely, then add the decals to make it easier, just so I know which way they're turning. So I'll have a look, and next time I see you, the model should be decaled, everything will be dried off, and hopefully we'll be ready to start applying more varnishes. Right, okay, well, we've given this a couple of hours for these decals to dry after I've sliced them and added the little bits of softening agent, like we said. So now what I want to do is go in and just touch in the panel detail with a wash. And as you can see here, what I've got is just a couple of little bits of oil paint, a couple of little dabs of oil paint on a piece of tape. Okay, and all I'm going to do is take a little bit of the white over here and a little bit of the black and mix it in until we've got a reasonable medium grey. Okay, now what I'm not going to do is thin this any, so what we're doing is just putting a little bit of the neat stuff along the actual panel detail itself. Hope you can see that. Okay, and then moving that out of the way so we don't get any paint where we don't want it. It's simply a case of immediately you're then immediately just cleaning off the excess like so. Give it a little bit of a rub. Okay, and hopefully you can see that that has put that wash nicely along the panel line, especially on the white area of the rounder where it would have really stood out as being missing. So once again, it's just taking a little bit of the grey, neat oil paint that we've just mixed across the decal itself. Make sure it's actually in there, and then, like I said, it's making sure that you immediately clean it off before it has a chance to stain the decal or anything. You're looking purely to leave the coat in the in the decal itself. So I hope you can see that. So we're just gonna, what I'm going to do now is take our brush and add a little bit more of the black, because I want to darken it down for the top sides. And this is a great thing about oil paints, is that they're very, very versatile and very amenable to being used for this kind of thing. So as you can see, I've mixed a bit of a darker colour there, so I'm just going to move that out of the way again. And then we're going to go in and do the same across the roundels on the top. Again, like I said, make sure that you work it well in. So I hope you can see that. Immediately removing the excess and polishing the decal back. and that means, as I said before, because we're applying a very little bit and then immediately removing the excess, we're not getting any build up along the edge of the decal or anything like that that you possibly can do with other methods of washing. Again, there's no right or wrong method. This is the one that I choose because it works for me. If you have another method that works for you, by all means, use it. Okay, and that's that worked in. Okay, and the only other area really, fortunately on this particular model, there's not really anywhere else that we need to do that, so that's that done. I'm just going to ditch that. And then we've given the model a wipe over. It's pretty well clear of any problems or issues. Here we see the props that I'd spoken about. I've added the decals to the. Oh, I've assembled the props and added the decals to them. So I'm just looking for a couple of my clamps to put these in. Okay. And just get them out of the way for just a few seconds. There's the other one. Also, as I said, while we're doing this, we're kind of working through the finishing stages of the model and doing little details. So I've also taken the opportunity to paint the wheels themselves, so they're out the way now, ready for finishing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the lens out. Okay. So move that to the side. So with that done, okay, what I need to do is add. I want to seal the decals in. So that we're ready for other finishing stages. So I'm just going to grab just a couple of little areas where still a little bit of oil paint has built up and I'd like to get rid of it. So that's that done. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to add a very thin coat of gloss varnish. I'm going to use the Super Clear 3 that you've seen me using so far, and what I'm going to do is put a very thin coat, heavily thinned, and that's going to it's going to seal the decals in, but also the fact that it's has got solvents in it means that it's going to work as a final line with the decals to soften them and ensure that there's no silvering or anything.